Regret growth is all about using regret to help you move forward instead of letting it hold you back. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. So glad you're here. And today, this is a good episode. Today, we're talking about what I call regret growth. So regret growth is all about using regret to help you move forward instead of letting it hold you back. So regret, it's this feeling that so many of us wrestle with, especially in parenting. Lately, I've had so many parents come to me weighed down by regret over things that they said, choices they made, moments they wish they could redo, and I get it. We have all had thoughts like, I should have been more patient. I wish I had handled that meltdown differently. I started lecturing and blaming when the kids started fighting and it made things worse, not better. Why did I show up like that? I think we can all relate that, especially with parenting, we have a lot of moments where we reflect back and we think, oh, I wish I had done something differently. I don't like how I showed up. So today we're going to explore how to navigate regret, or more accurately, how to stop getting stuck in regret. So that's what I call regret growth. So let's start with this question. I want you to ask yourself, is there an upside to regret? Can it actually serve you? Or is it an indulgent emotion that keeps you spinning and stuck? Now, if you've been following along for a while, or if you're one of my amazing parents from League, you know that I like to categorize emotions as either useful or indulgent, or productive and unproductive. I don't love the categories of negative and positive because I think they're just too limiting. So, some of the most valuable emotions, like discomfort, sadness, or frustration, emotions that we might classify as negative, quote unquote negative, don't feel great. That's why we'd say they're negative, but they help us grow. They help us move forward, which is why I would classify them as useful or productive. Well, how does this impact where we're going to classify regret? Like, where does regret fit in? Is it one of the valuable negative emotions, quote unquote negative emotions? Or is it an emotion that keeps us trapped in cycles of guilt and self-judgment, which I would put into the non-productive, not valuable, indulgent emotion category? And I think the answer is both yes and no. Regret can be useful. It can be productive if we use it well. For example, if you look at a moment where you lost your patience, you handled the situation poorly, you didn't show up the way you wanted to as a parent, you disagree with what you said or did, and you feel a little ping of regret, and you let that emotion of regret guide you towards doing better next time, then yes, regret has value and it can be really productive. But here's the problem. And this is my problem. Most of the time, the way we use regret isn't that way. We use it in a weaponized way against ourselves. So we get stuck blaming ourselves for past mistakes, replaying those moments over and over in our head, and believing that if we had only done something differently, then everything would be better. If I had only said the right thing to my child, then everything would be better. And I regret that I didn't say it, and I'm spinning over that situation over and over and over again. And that is when regret becomes indulgent and non-productive. One of the key concepts I teach inside of League when I'm teaching Connect Method Parenting is the difference between past focus and future focus. When we get locked into a past-focused mindset, when we argue with what already has happened, so we're saying things like, I should have handled bedtime better. I wish I would have been more patient when my child was melting down. If only I had known then what I know now. And that regret that comes up as we're ruminating over those past events gets us spinning and dwelling in the past and keeps us stuck and feeling horrible, then nothing productive is coming from that emotion of regret, and it's indulgent. That's what indulging in regret looks like. But future-focused thinking shifts everything forward. So instead of staying in the regret, we're thinking about the same situation where we didn't do or say the thing we wish we had, and we're asking ourselves, That's very interesting. What can I learn from this? How can I show up differently next time? And this is when regret becomes a tool for growth. Because regret, it should be a bridge getting us somewhere new, not a dwelling place that we're hunkered down in and we're just staying in it all the time. So regret is only useful if we use it to shape how we move forward, not if we stay stuck in the past, believing that this past event defines us. That's not helping us. So if regret is a quick, momentary flash that helps us take more responsibility for our actions, helps us recognize what we could do differently next time, and leads us to think, wow, I don't like how I reacted with my kids. I could have handled that differently, and I'm making a plan so that I can do better next time. That's when regret serves us. That's regret growth. Beyond that, it loses its value and starts working against us. So I found this quote as I was working on this episode for you all, gathering my thoughts, putting everything down on paper. And I loved this quote. It says, "A man is not old until regret takes the place of dreams." So good. So good. That's by John Barrymore, who, yes, is the grandfather of Drew Barrymore, which is totally random. I hadn't seen this quote before, but I loved it as I was, putting everything together, and it popped up in a search I was doing. I thought, oh, I love that. Regret taking the place of our dreams. That is not anything we want. And that is what happens when we are in a regret spiral, which is the opposite of when we are in regret growth. So a regret spiral is when we replay our mistakes and we find ourselves spinning in thoughts like, I should not have yelled. I wish I had been more present. If only I had done things differently. But you don't learn and grow from the regret. You use the regret against yourself. You don't use the regret to change your future. It becomes like a dead weight that keeps you stuck. Anybody done that? I know I have. I have done that, and it feels useful. Part of me thinks this is necessary for change, but what I have found is that is never the case. When I'm spinning in shame and blame and worry, and I'm beating myself up over something, thinking that I just need to get this into my head to not do that again, I never change. I just feel worse and worse about myself. So the opposite of that is if I can look at the same situation and I can say, I'm going to do things differently next time. This is great to see. That's a really powerful insight. I wonder what led to me acting that way. And I'm using the awareness that comes from the ping of regret to grow. That's regret growth. But if I'm looking back and I'm just wishing that things had been different and I'm not taking action, it's not serving you. That's regret spiraling. So notice if you find yourself in that regret spiral and remind yourself, this isn't useful. It feels like it's going to help me change. It's not going to help me change. One of the most powerful thoughts I've used in my own life is the belief that if something has happened, I'm going to believe it was meant to happen. It's just the way it was. And I don't believe in predestination, so that's not what I'm saying. But I do think it's ridiculous to fight against reality, especially reality from the past, because there is nothing, believe me, I've tried. There's no way you can go back in time and physically revisit the experience and change it. And no amount of regret is going to make that happen either. It's just going to keep you cycling through that story and doing it again and again and again. So for me to believe, hey, I guess that was supposed to happen. That was supposed to wake me up a little bit and see my weaknesses, see the opportunities for growth here. That was supposed to happen. Help me learn from this, grow from this. I'm not going to resist or judge or fight against the past. I'm going to just let it be the way it was. I'm not going to wish it was any different. It was the way it was. And because it happened, I'm just going to believe. And I love this thought for myself that that was what was supposed to happen. Because I do believe if there is some event that is not supposed to happen, I believe there will be intervention. So because it didn't happen, there was no intervention, I yelled at my kids again, I got impatient around bedtime, I said something I regret, I'm going to believe that is, I'm just going to see it as that is what happened and stop trying to fight it. So I started playing around with this idea of not fighting against reality years and years ago. And I have to tell you, it feels so much better. And I grow so much faster in who I want to be as a human and who I want to be as a parent. I'm able to give myself grace, my kids grace. I'm able to learn and grow. They're able to learn and grow. They're not stuck in shame cycles either. I mean, we all might dip our toe in that, but to recognize, hey, I'm in it. I don't want to get out of it. That is powerful. So we may show up poorly. We may say something we don't regret. We're humans. It's going to happen. But deciding to learn from it so that we can do better next time, that is regret growth. So there's 3 steps to regret growth that allows us to make the most of our past experiences, our past missteps, mess ups, whatever you want to call them, just the past, so that we can do better in the future. And the 3 steps are first, awareness. So this happens when we have a ping, when we have an awareness, when we notice, oh, there's something that I did and I have a little regret about it. And I have an awareness around the fact that I don't like how I showed up. So that's the first step. I have to have the awareness. I have to have the little ping of, and in sometimes, it's a little guilt. It's a little regret. It can evolve into other things, but if we're still feeling regret, let's step into regret growth. So I have a little regret. I have the ping of awareness. Ooh, I don't like how I showed up last night at bedtime. That's really interesting. Then I can move into the second step, acceptance. So I'm going to assume that I was doing my best. I'm going to accept who I was in that moment. Not that it was my best version of me, but that was who I was in that moment. And if I could have done better, I would have. Now, when I believe that I was doing my best, and if I could have done better, I would have, it feels so liberating. And I believe it's the truth. I've never asked a parent when they're telling me about some situation they regret. I've never asked them, hey, if you could go back in time and you could show up more loving and kind, you could have more compassion or whatever it is they feel like they were missing at the time, would you do it? I've never had anybody say, no, I think I would have shown up and been just as grouchy and just as frustrated. I would have said those words. Never. They always say, if I could go back in time, I would show up more loving and kind. Maybe I still needed to set that limit, but I could have done it in a kinder way. I could have done it without as much negative energy, without being triggered. And I believe that this proves that we are good, loving people, which means that the only reason that we aren't able to tap into all of our love and all of our compassion in the moment is because something was blocking us. Something was squashing our ability to tap into our full capacity for love and growth. We were being throttled. So having the belief that I was doing my best in that moment, and if I wasn't living up to my capacity, there was something in the way, and I want to discover what was in the way so I can untap more of my potential next time, is so empowering, because then I can realize there was a reason I was showing up that way. And it's not because there's something horribly wrong with me. I'm a good person. I just wasn't able to bring all that goodness out. So when we go into a regret growth cycle, we begin to discover what's been throttling our potential. Because it isn't desire. It's absolutely not desire. We all want to be the best version of ourselves. We want to be more loving and kind. So first step in regret growth is when the regret comes up, it triggers us to awareness, not shame. So then we have this awareness, step 1, I don't like how I showed up. Then we go into step 2, we accept ourselves, that we are doing our best, because that allows us to have more growth so we can do better later. And it's just the truth. And third, once we've had the awareness, we've had the acceptance, now I can take accountability, because I'm not going right into a regret spiral and shaming and blaming myself. My nervous system isn't getting triggered. So I'm able to take full responsibility for my actions. And we'll think, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for what I did, and I'm going to figure out how to do better next time. We don't need to go into a regret spiral. We don't need to go into shame and blame and beat ourselves up. 1, because it feels terrible, but 2, it doesn't work. It doesn't do us any good. We need to step into regret growth. And this doesn't mean you don't feel sorry, you don't have remorse. It actually, in my experience, means you have more compassion, more awareness around where you got it wrong, more remorse, more willing to say sorry. Because you're not stuck in shame, blame, and regret. You're not needing to be defensive. You're not needing to prove anything. It doesn't show, this past mistake doesn't show that there's something wrong with you. You know you're inherently good. You have unconditional positive regard for yourself, and you think, oh, that did not come out in that moment. It's very interesting. So I have the awareness. I accept I was doing my very best. And now I can take accountability and repair and show up differently and figure out what was getting in the way. Maybe I was really tired. Maybe I was just at my wit's end because I had burned dinner and the kids were fighting. And then my husband said he was going to be home late. And then somebody canceled this, whatever. Like there's a reason. There's a reason. Or maybe my capacity to hold the compassion I want for my kids, the neutrality I want around their behavior, I was outside my window of tolerance because it'd been going on for so long. Good to know. So it's just a capacity issue. It's not a personality flaw. You can show love and repair things so much better when you're not regret spiraling, where regret is there looming over you like this dark cloud. When you think you should have done something different, you should have been better, you should have showed up differently with your kids, you are literally fighting against something you cannot change. And this is when regret is not productive, or what I'd classify as an indulgent emotion. So instead, when you have a ping of regret, accept that you were doing your best. Let yourself take that trip from mad to sad, which keeps that prefrontal cortex on, which we need that prefrontal cortex on to have the rational thinking so we can take responsibility for the situation, so that we can learn, we can grow, we can adapt because of it, and we can become more emotionally capable to do better next time. That's the regret growth cycle in a nutshell. Awareness, acceptance, accountability. Put those together and you get growth. And that's the only time I think regret is useful. When we use it to grow, not when we use it to feel bad about ourselves. So here's what I want to recommend you do with regret. I want you to use it for you, not against you, which you can do by tapping into the regret growth cycle. Now, I want to talk about one other way that we can use regret in a productive way. I call it the regret forecast. We're imagining ourselves 10 years in the future. So add 10 years into your life. Add 10 years onto your kid's life. Think about what you're going to be doing. Okay, have that vision of you in 10 years. Now, here's the question I want you to ask yourself. What might you look back on your life and feel regret about? Or said another way, what might you regret you didn't do these last 10 years? I think this is a useful way to use the emotion of regret because it helps you see who you want to be now. So here's some of the things that I came up with when I've done this for myself. I would regret if I wasn't truly being present with my kids while they're still home. I would regret reacting out of frustration instead of responding with patience and connection. I would regret not making time for my marriage and connecting with my spouse. I would regret not taking care of my body and modeling really good self-care for my children. I would regret not nurturing friendships and making space for joy outside of parenting. And I would regret not taking risks. In fact, as I was going through this and revisiting some of the things I would regret if I didn't do in the next 10 years, I realized that my 22-year-old had asked a year ago about skydiving, and she said, "Do you want to do it with me?" And I was so nervous. Skydiving's always been a very scary thing to me, and I kind of avoided answering the question. And I was going through this. I thought, in 10 years, am I going to regret not doing that with her? Will I feel sad that I didn't, get over my fear and go do it with her? And I thought, yes, I want to do that with her. Not to prove anything, but just because I want that experience with her. I want to, whenever possible, engage with my kids, especially when they're asking me to engage with them. So I texted her and we're going to do it. I'm so excited, and I'll return and report how that all goes. I'm very terrified, but I want to be willing to do things that put me outside of my comfort zone that are important to me. And this is important to me. So that was really powerful for me to have a few things like that jump out at me and ping me and say, hey, don't keep pushing this away. Don't keep pushing this back. And another one that came up as I was getting more specific was I want to make it more of a priority to go visit my parents and in-laws. We don't live in the same state as them. And we have most of our married life lived in the same state. But during COVID, we decided to escape the desert and move to the mountains. So we don't live in the same state as them anymore. So it's a little harder to connect with them. And so I was talking to my husband and I said, how can we proactively start visiting them every quarter? So we're figuring out how to do that. And that came out of this exercise. So see what comes up when you do this exercise and see how it informs you on decisions you want to start making today. Because we don't want to look back and have regrets. And I don't love the emotion of regret, but if we're going to have it, let's use it as a productive emotion that helps us maximize our life. Now, what should you do if you're doing a lot of regret spiraling right now? If you look back at what you've done in the past and you're punishing yourself with regret and shame and blame. And if this is you, I get it because this was me. And it's definitely where my brain likes to go. Old neural pathways will try to stay alive as long as they can. And mine still tries to get a little bit of watering every now and then, a little bit of traction, but we have to be onto it. So if this is you, I want you to ask yourself, is there any upside to regret spiraling in the shame and blame? Is this the kind of regret that's helping me? Is there a purpose in holding on to regret in this way? Does feeling regret in this way make things better or worse? Is regret serving me in any way right now? And if the answer is no, then I want you to ask yourself, who would I be without regret and blame and shame and beating myself up? How could you think about your past in a way where you don't feel blame? How could you see your past in a way that creates a better future for you? What if you made a decision to not let your regrets take the place of your dreams? Because you don't have to beat yourself up over past mistakes in order to create a better future. Growth doesn't come from guilt. It comes from choosing to move forward with intention. And as a parent, I'm sure you can look back on moments that you wish you had handled differently. Bedtime battles, losing our patience over homework, missed opportunities to slow down and connect. But you don't have to sit in blame. Instead, you can use those reflections to shape how you show up better today and in the future, not from a place of regret and shame, but from a place of growth. And that's what regret growth is all about. We have the awareness of a little ping of regret, but we don't stay in it. We move into growth. We move into using it as a catalyst for our benefit to become a better version of ourselves. So what at the end of your life will you regret? I know it won't be the mistakes that I made while trying my best. It won't be the times I got things wrong, but I was showing up anyway. It won't be the moment I stepped outside my comfort zone and took that big risk. I think the thing that we might regret is by not showing up fully, not taking the risk, not being allowed, not being willing to make mistakes. When we're trying to go from corrective to connective parenting, when we're trying to use this whole thing called setting limits that Andy's talking about, when we're trying to be the compassionate alpha and we're stumbling over ourselves, when we don't believe in ourselves enough to keep trying, to keep iterating, to keep showing up to create those deep, lasting relationships with our kids, despite the off-track behavior, to help them navigate their big emotions so that they can become the most emotionally capable and mature and resilient human possible for them. Not fully showing up in my power as a parent to help create those things for myself and my kids. That's what I might regret. Not showing up in my full power as a parent I want to be, that connective, compassionate, firm parent that I want to be. I think I would regret that. So what if you bet on yourself and your future and who you are capable of becoming? What if you decided from now on, I'm going to look back on my life only to see how I can do better in the future with a little wink and a fist bump energy and say, hey, nice job. Thanks for showing up, Andy. Thank you for showing up. What if you decided to say that to yourself? What if you decided that's the only way you're going to use regret is to grow? That's what I'm doing for myself. And I really, really hope you'll do the same for you. If you use regret, use it in a way that serves you. Tap into that regret growth cycle. Let it help you see what you need to learn or do or become or develop so that you can bring that next version of yourself to the kids squabbling, to bedtime, to your life. But commit to never using regret against yourself again. Let your past mistakes inform you of how to do better, but never let your past mistakes define you. All right, you all, that's what I got for you. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out my Connect Method Parenting Coaching Program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.